Okay, so our next panel coming up is going to be a fun one. I got a good feeling, guys. So Los Angeles leader in the legalization of cannabis. Here, our next panel, Digital Dispensary, on how these iconic local to LA brands are adapting their cannabis business to e-commerce. As you know, necessity is the mother of invention, and no industry knows better than cannabis. In legal markets, cannabis has been at the forefront of e-commerce, taking advantage of technology to grow brands and to build community. Listen in as Greenbox Robotics founder and CEO, Zack Johnson. Zack is a legend. Host Miss Grass, Binske, and Glissant in a panel in the intersection of cannabis and commerce. I'm so sorry I destroyed those names. Let's try one time. Let's go Zack Miller. Third time's a charm. Zack Johnson got one down. Kate Miller, CEO and founder of Miss Grass. Alex Pasternak, EVP of Binske, and Dr. Karen Elber, co-founder and CEO of Glissant. I apologize if I messed that up. I'm going to leave it to you guys.
Great job, Steven. No worries, bud. Welcome everybody. We'll just wait a quick second for Alex to join us. Is Alex in?
Yep.
There you go. Got you. How's everybody doing today?
Great. Good. I love the product placement in the back.
You know, it's really important to highlight all the work you guys are doing. So at some point throughout this discussion, there may be some product reviews. Thanks to Miss Grass and Binske. But welcome to the Digital Dispensary e-commerce week, brought to you by Hawke Media. Thank you all for coming together and shedding some light on the cannabis industry. Amazing guest today. Really excited to talk about some of the challenges you guys are facing in the budding cannabis industry, specific to the marketing front. But without further ado, I'd like to direct my first question to Miss Grass, co-founder and CEO, Kate Miller. I'd love to hear about the early days of your company, the conversations that you and Anna were having around the initial traction, and how it all came to be.
Yeah, so first of all, thanks for having me. Thanks, Hawke. Thanks, Zack, for curating such a great group here. We started Miss Grass back in January 2018 is when we launched. So Anna and I got together obviously several months before that, and we were looking at the cannabis landscape, and California was not recreationally legal at the time, although it was voted on. So it was about to be in January, which is the month that we launched. And brands were popping up in the space, and we were starting to see brands that were gaining a lot of traction, but could only operate and build a community within the state that they operated in because of the federal illegality of cannabis and not being able to ship product across state boundaries. And we decided, based on our backgrounds, like this for us is a brand play. And as, we were looking at the landscape, we decided to start as this contextual commerce platform so that we can build brand, a community, and a customer base across the entire country. Gain really incredible data that way, and then back into our product. So we're one of the first, we like to say, like audience first brands, where we didn't launch necessarily with product and then try to build community. We launched, built community, and then backed into exactly the product that community wanted.
Amazing. And we're going to dive into your product launch, which I'm really excited about. But an additional question for you, in terms of when it's the right time to introduce a product. Did it kind of hit you guys and say, we're ready? We've created this incredible marketplace, this beautiful digital magazine. When did you know that it was time to introduce your first product?
Honestly, it was our community asking for it. It was one of the other reasons why we decided to launch owning the platform, because owning data in the cannabis space, if you're plant touching, so if you're on the THC side, is really problematic because you're not actually selling your product to the customer. So there's a disconnect between the brand and who your actual customer is. So for us, we've developed our, relationships, built our community from day one. and they were asking for it. We have a lot of like data points throughout kind of the purchase journey on our eCom shop, throughout our content online magazine. And we just kept getting like told through the data and first person told, like, we're weed people, we love weed. We have, for instance, a quiz on our eCom shop to help consumers go through the purchasing journey and serve up products that are specific for their individual needs. And one of the first questions we asked is like, THC or CBD, and 62% said THC, 28% said THC or CBD. So that was like the first point where we were like, okay, there's like a disconnect between what we're actually selling them right now, which on our eCom shop, we sell all federally legal hemp-derived cannabinoid products and cannabis accessories, so a lot of CBD products. So yeah, it was just time that based on the data that we were receiving, we decided it's time to launch product.
It's amazing. We're going to come back to it and stay tuned for the end of this discussion, because we might be testing some of the new Miscraft products live here on this amazing panel. My next question is for this amazing brand new company, Glissant. And I'd like to introduce Dr. Karen Eibler, who is a co-founder of Glissant. First question I have for you is, coming together with your co-founder, what were the strengths that each of you were bringing to the table to bring this amazing product to life?
I mean, really, well, first of all, thank you for having me. I think what the strengths are, obviously having a medical background and, making something like a personal lubricant, I do think it's important to understand, what you're actually putting into somebody's body. But, it's like Kate was saying, you have to kind of see what people want, right? And although I know maybe the medical side of it, I needed my co-founder, who is a beauty entrepreneur, to really bring, for lack of a better word, the beauty into it. And so I think together we have, the knowledge of a doctor, we've got the eye of a beauty entrepreneur, and I really think it fills a certain void where we've elevated, the lubricant from, back in the day, what your mom had looked like it came out of like a toothpaste tube, and you'd be embarrassed to carry it around. And, with our packaging, it travels well, it looks good. And it's for that woman who kind of knows what she wants, and she's not going to, she's not the person who buys her lipstick at the grocery store.
Right. Well, the attention to detail on the packaging, we're going to do a little unboxing a little bit later on. You guys have built an incredible product. And, one of the other questions I have for you is, how do we make this conversation around lubricant more comfortable when you're 20 plus years of experience currently working at Cedars-Sinai's hospital? You're having a lot of conversations with your patients around this topic, but I'm curious what you and Renee have discussed in terms of ways of making this conversation more comfortable in terms of making your sex life better.
I think social media in general has made it more comfortable. Look at the cannabis industry. I think that traditionally people would look at, people who smoke pot or did things as like the vagrants of society. And that's not really what it is. We're here to normalize behavior that, quote unquote, normal people do. So normal people use THC, they use cannabis, they actually have sex, believe it or not. So we're just trying to make the conversation comfortable and normal for everybody.
I love it. I love it. Well, we're going to come back and we're going to do a little unboxing, but I'd like to introduce the next guest on our amazing panel, Mr. Alex Pasternak, Executive Vice President of Binske. Alex, the first question I have for you is about your team and the original team around this amazing company. You work with your brother, your older brother, and I'm curious what that's like in terms of the family dynamic, the strengths, and also what is Binske, just out of curiosity.
Yeah, well, thanks again, Zach and Hawke Media for having me today. Definitely awesome opportunity to be here. For starters, Binske is a made-up word between my brother and I from when we were in high school and in college. It was an evolution of the word doobie. From doobie, we turned it into Dubinsky. And over time, the do and the ski got shortened, and Binske was the made-up word for a joint in our late years growing up in South Florida. To your point, yeah, my brother Jake is the CEO of the company, and I'm currently the vice president. And so together we play what I would describe as a perfect yin and yang relationship. We truly play to each other's strengths and weaknesses. He focuses a little bit more on brand building as a whole, investor relations, global marketing, and I'm more of the day-to-day operations, the in-state marketing. We're working on packaging together, and so we again play to each other's strengths and weaknesses pretty effectively. I think at the end of the day, there's nobody that the two of us would trust more in this world to be partners with in this brand than our blood brothers. So pretty fortunate and humble for just the position of being able to have this brand up and running with my brother as my partner in it.
That's amazing. I'm a big believer in working with your family, and I've had the great fortune of trying the products that you guys have created over the years, and we're also going to dive into some of those at a certain point in this panel. But my next question kind of ties in. The challenges for cannabis companies within retailers. Oftentimes, you as a product developer are dealing with a licensed distributor, dealing with one or two different retailers that have a different makeup of their store. So this question is for Ms. Grass and Binske. How are you overcoming the challenge of telling the story of your products in so many different landscapes of the compliant retail industry of the cannabis industry? And I'll start with Ms. Grass.
So we just launched our THC product on the 17th, so like a week plus ago. So it's very new to us. It's the first product that we're selling to our community and to customers that we don't actually sell on our .com eCom marketplace. So we rely on dispensary and delivery partners to deliver that to our customers. For us, the play, since it is a brand play, we're more focused on aligning with the right retailers who are strategically aligned, who are aligned from like a mission and a value and an ethos, and who can really link arms with us so that they're giving us the data that we can then learn and iterate, figure out what marketing levers we are pulling that's actually driving conversion to them. And obviously they're very incentivized to work with us so that we can better help them sell Ms. Grass products. So a great example of that is we launched exclusively with a retail partner named Sweet Flower. They're in the Los Angeles market. They have 4 shops throughout Los Angeles. And we gave them the first week exclusive of our launch to be able to exactly do that. So we built a pretty large and robust email newsletter, for instance, and we did a bunch of segmentations and a bunch of A/B testing to see like what drove the most conversion into Sweet Flower shop, what drove the most conversion through their delivery system. And they shared all that data back with us so that we're constantly iterating to be better. In an ideal world, if we didn't work in kind of the industry that we did and there was more players that enabled this, like we're looking to bring this so that we can actually control the purchasing experience through a D2C, through our site, which is what we built up. So that'll hopefully come in Q1 of next year.
It's amazing. And before we dive into Binske on answering that question, I actually went through the Sweet Flower delivery this morning, and one of your guys that you trained up did a fantastic job of educating me on the products.
Yay, love to hear that.
Ches was the one that delivered it to me. But
okay.
Even giving me a recommendation of when to consume one of your products. I think you guys have done a great job from start to finish with your first launch, and very excited to see where you take it when you can control every step of the funnel. And then also, to the pop-ups you guys were doing pre-COVID, being able to control that narrative within the 4 walls. Very excited to see what Ms. Grass comes up with. But
thank you.
Alex, if you could share, you guys are all over the country. You're dealing with all different types of retailers. How are you able to control the narrative of your brand with all of these different partners?
So it's a great question. I think the first thing that I'd like to say on this question is that my first role for the company was head of sales in Colorado. So at the very beginning, I was working with one specific state with a set of retailers. That number in Colorado is now 600 plus doors. But it was one specific state, and it was education, bud tender education, manager education, and the rollout of the line across the territory. What I quickly realized when we got our first chain store in Colorado and they had 20 plus locations, it was with the constant turnover of the employee turnover that's happening behind the counter in these dispensaries, started to feel like this individual training, one after the next, word of mouth education from the brand is not going to cut it. At this point, Zach, like you said, we are a multi-state brand. Our products are available from East Coast to West Coast at this point, and a few new territories coming online as we speak. What we've recently done is a collaboration with this company called Lucid ID. And so now embedded in the compliance label, which is on every single one of our packaged good items, there will be a QR code. And so this QR code will allow not only the bud tenders to scan it and get the education directly from the products, but also consumers, when they come home, they can check authenticity and then they can learn more about the brand directly through an embedded QR code. So it's something that we, education as a whole is something that we focus on heavily. We believe that it's a backbone to our brand. We have a ton of education that goes on to our products. We are a bean to bar, farm to table, artisanal craft brand. So we have to explain why we use cacao and why our extra virgin olive oil line from outside Santa Barbara is worth the extra few bucks, and why our pectin-based gummies are vegan and why they are what they are, and why our vape pens are only live resin sauce carts and no CO2 in a vape. So everything that we've created at Binske does have a pretty heavy level of education that is embedded in it. And so I realized over the years, it's not going to just be me and my brother sitting here and trying to educate people. And so we are now partnering with third-party groups to try to get the level of education that we want to the masses from coast to coast as quickly as possible.
Amazing. Very excited to continue to see both your companies evolve and strategize the experience within the store. I think education is so important across the board. And you guys are doing a fantastic job. My next
Zach,
question.
if I can just dovetail on just Alex's comments, sorry to interrupt you. I think the education piece is so important. The question we're asking earlier, like, how do you have these conversations? It's like anything. When people don't understand things, they're always hesitant to try them. So I think your QR code approach is brilliant. I mean, the easier people have access to education, the more they know, the more they're willing to get out of their comfort zone and try new things.
Very good. Well, my next question is actually for you, Dr. Karen Eibler. I'd like to transition the conversation and let's talk about sex. Let's make this conversation comfortable. You've done an amazing job of building this product. I want you to kind of share with our audience some of the conversations that you're having within your practice and within the hospital at Cedars-Sinai's in terms of trying new things and how maybe, one medicine doesn't work for this patient, and your recommendation process and how it's evolved over the years.
The way I practice medicine now versus, 5 or 10 years ago, I'm much more open-minded. It's back to education. You can only learn so much in medical school, and the rest you kind of learn on the job. So talking about sex is like my day job all the time. But one of my favorite things that I love to say is there's a reason it's called the practice of medicine, right? We don't just do medicine, we practice it because we learn things all the time. And I'm constantly learning better things from my patients, because it's just like your money, your own health, you're the most invested in it. So you're going to try the alternative thing. So, before CBD became legalized, people would come to me and say, well, I'm trying this, is that okay? I didn't really know much about it. So I said, as long as it's not hurting you and you feel like it's helping you, of course it's fine. And, a background story on Glissant was my co-founder's sister, unfortunately, became very ill. And the only thing that helped her pain was CBD. So when my co-founder said, look, if we're trying to make products to make sex less painful, why aren't we making one with CBD? And, this is not something I ever learned about, in medical school. So I had to kind of do my own research on the side to make myself comfortable with this. So I give my co-founder a lot of credit for, kind of making me open my eyes and be receptive to it. And she was also, very forward thinking about including CBG, in our product too. So I really think that people teach me at this point in my career much more because I already know what I know and I don't know what I don't know. So people come to me all the time and say, hey, listen, I appreciate you tried to help me. You never did, but I found that this helped, and I'll use that information to help the next person.
That's amazing. And I'm curious, at what point during the product development stage did you say, let's do the FDA testing? Because one of your products is FDA approved, and then you have the CBD line as well. What does that process look like for the viewers?
Well, unfortunately, it's a much longer and more expensive process than I thought. So our timing was such that when we decided to make a lubricant, the FDA was really coming down on requiring testing, because prior to 2015, you really didn't have to have any testing. And you didn't necessarily have to. It was kind of like if you weren't caught, they weren't going to come and knock on your door and take your product off the shelf. But, being a physician and specializing in female pelvic medicine, I found it really important to actually pursue this. But like I said, it was a lot of third-party testing, and it's just a lot of time and money. And I think we had to resubmit like 4 times before we got it approved. But I also feel really good that the product we offer, is very safe for women. And, we put the same quality products and care that we do into our CBD product as we did into our FDA. But of course, at this point in time, no CBD product is ever going to get any kind of FDA clearance.
And where can people find out more about Glissant? What's the website?
So the website is glissantlove.com, GLISSANT love.com. So Glissant actually means slippery in French. No explanation needed there.
Very good. I hope this is educational for everybody on this panel as well as the listeners, because I think you all bring something very unique to the cannabis industry, and I want us all to learn together and continue to push the culture and just the product lines. And all of you are amazing. But my next question is to Binske. You mentioned earlier, we've heard the phrase multi-state operator, which means you're operating, you're cultivating, you're retailing in different states. So there's quite a few multi-state operators, but I believe that Binske is the only MSB multi-state operator or multi-state brand. Can you explain what exactly that means and how you guys are pioneering this approach?
Yeah, totally. So basically, the way to think about this is in Colorado, which is where we started, we own and operate the brand. We have the infrastructure, we have the licenses, we have the facilities, we have full staff, et cetera. We decided when we were figuring out expansion and how do we get the brand into as many territories as quickly as possible, that if we go down more of a licensing angle and find other qualified operators in some of these other territories, that we could theoretically license the brand to them to enter these markets a little bit quicker. So right now, Binske has about 13 active licensing deals in place with operators from Trulieve in Florida to smaller groups. We have another group up northeast, Maramed, that's another publicly traded operator that we have a licensing deal with. We are about to launch in Canada over the next few months. And so what you hinted at is very valuable, because we're truly not an MSO. We actually are only operating our brand in one single territory, Colorado, but we have other qualified operators that are now producing our products in some of these said territories. And so as a true single state operator with licensing deals set up, we at this point have one of the larger footprints of any true brand in the space. I think it's something interesting to note when you think about these MSOs, multi-state operators, for the most part, they're paying for licenses, facility build out operations in each one of these said states or countries, territories. And from paying for their licenses, and for the acquisitions of all of the operations in those territories, they end up getting their brands into those territories as well. And so I only say that because we have really only paid for our brand to enter into Colorado, the state that we have the licenses. All of the other places, it's been the fact that the brand is strong enough that another third-party group wants to bring in our brand into that territory. And so that's really a huge differentiator when you think about it. And that's a huge component of what we're trying to do right now. So my daily duties for this company is really just trying to get us into new territories and help manage the territories that we're in.
Very good. MSB, you guys are creating phrases, creating innovation, pioneering. I think a lot of people are going to attempt to mimic what you're doing, but as the leader in the clubhouse and the massive footprint you have, just keep doing what you guys are doing. My next question is for Miss Grass. Kate, do you mind sharing just some of the digital marketing strategies you guys are using? I noticed when I was on your site today, you have the chatbot that pops up. The images you're using are absolutely beautiful. You can learn about all the products, but if you can kind of pop the hood on the engine that drives Miss Grass, and then as a follow-up, what are some of the data-driven decision-making processes that you have implemented to date to get to that aha moment of launching this amazing product?
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned a chat box. We use something called Zendesk, which is the company that is essentially powering that live bud tender widget on our site. And as cannabis is quite new to a lot of consumers, or even consumers who have been using and integrating this plan into their life for quite some time, it's, we're learning so much. Even myself, who has been using cannabis my majority of my life, like I'm even learning new things every single day. So, it, unlike other CPG categories, there's a lot of questions from consumers on what's the right dose, what's the right form factor, what's, CBD or THC, what are cannabinoids and terpenes and all of that. So having someone on our end that's answering in real time consumers' questions as they're going through the purchase journey has really been helpful for conversion for us. So that's just one tactic. We have, as I mentioned before, a quiz that we have on our site that takes people through. I'm sure we've all gone through them on some D2C brands, but starts out by asking them kind of what their specific need is, because we see on our site people are looking for specific needs when they're purchasing from Miss Grass. So a product to help them with sleep, or a product to help them reduce stress, etc. And then in addition, a bunch of other questions that kind of then serve up what like the product recommendation would be for them. All of these things obviously go in also a great way for us to collect data and we use that data to inform everything from what content we're creating to what marketing strategies, what campaigns, and then now our product development. So that's a great example of the product development we came out with, which they're sitting in back of Zack, but we came out with Miss Grass Minis, which are mini pre-roll joints. There's 5 in there. And this was like, honestly, almost 100% created from the community telling us exactly what they wanted. So from gathering data from that quiz, from gathering data on what type of content performs the best, from gathering data from our live bud tender, from gathering data on like what sells on our e-commerce shop, the right purchasing price, the right form factor and all of that stuff, we decided that this is exactly what she wanted. We also, once we started gathering some of this data, we were extracting the fact that, like, okay, we're talking to weed loving women. We know that she likes to smoke. That's her number one form factor, is a smokable flower. And then we followed up with a specific quiz to like get even into more granular. So 1,400 people responded to this quiz. Oh, it was just like a fun little social quiz that we did, and which really helps inform everything from like what the price point was, what kind of flower we should use. Because one of the things that we realize is, like, with the purchasing journey, she really cared about consistency. So if you care about consistency, you can't necessarily use outdoor flower because that changes every single harvest. So it really informed every single thing, from deciding to do minis instead of a full joint, because we were told over and over again, I don't get through a full joint when I'm smoking. So that's why we decided to do that. So that's a perfect example of how we use the data to inform our product.
Amazing. And another thing I want to highlight about Miss Grass is just the overall, when I was actually working at Hawke Media, I think I coined it, maybe somebody else did, I'm not trying to infringe on the trademark, but CQC, consistent quality content, and really letting your fan base, letting the people that are interested about your product understand more about the brand and the DNA of what you guys are creating. And I think Miss Grass has really set the bar in terms of that consistency across social media, that consistency on email marketing. So for the viewers at home that want to understand how to really maximize your fan base and grow your audience, opt into the Miss Grass email marketing efforts, follow them on social media. And the same thing goes for Glissant, same thing goes for Binske. Everybody on this panel are pioneering, this industry that's going forward, not going backwards. And just really impressed with what you guys have all built to date, and excited to see where you all take it. But thank you for those answers. My next one is, let me actually address that. So this is more of a discussion piece for the three of us. All of the companies in this e-commerce week have access to platforms like Google, Facebook, to acquire customers. For e-commerce week, I think we really need to highlight the challenges that each of us have faced in going out and advertising, and some of the workarounds that you've created, whether it's experiential, whether it's consistency like we just talked about on social media. I want to start with Glissant in some of the challenges that you guys are faced with in, one, advertising a CBD product to acquire customers on Facebook and Google, and then two, the sexual nature of your product in terms of what's acceptable and what's not acceptable on these platforms. But we'll start with Dr. Karen Eibler, and then we'll go to Binske in terms of challenges in marketing your products versus the traditional e-commerce brands. So Karen, fire away.
Yeah, I mean, my response is, what challenge have we not run into? I think that what was really eye-opening to me was being a doctor and like doing what I do to help women. I was really shocked that a product that is to help women is just banned from any kind of, social media advertising. Because even when we wanted to do just our FDA, not even the CBD product, we got banned. It was really, trying to talk to somebody, from Facebook to find out the problem. So we did all these, workarounds. We tried a totally different landing page that would go to, a different site. And, you come to find out that it wasn't even the word vagina. It was a picture of a woman in lingerie that wasn't even that suggestive. So it's been really tough. At one point, I felt like our ads were so squeaky clean that you couldn't even figure out what our product was. So, right. So, I mean, Kate, you're laughing because I'm sure you've had the same kind of issues. So, that's where we've had to look to, other advertising channels. You try to maximize your social media as much as possible, try word of mouth. Of course, retail right now, brick and mortar is just not really happening all that much. So it's definitely been a slower process than we had hoped, but we're moving forward, and you just learn from your mistakes.
And you recently engaged with Hawke Media. So I heard recently, a couple of weeks ago, maybe a week ago, but that's a great place to be. I'm excited to see what they do. And they're going to be rolling you out on the new partner platform, Philo, which is FYLLO, which is a great platform. So I'm excited to see what the Hawk's Nest does to disrupt your marketing initiatives at Glissant. But Alex, you have a really interesting story on the Instagram side. Do you mind sharing some of the challenges and this specific story that I know I'm talking about?
Yeah, sure. So it was about 2 years ago, and I went on to Instagram like I do 9 times a day to check the Instagram page, and I couldn't help but notice that our page was gone. It was deactivated / deleted. Got no notice from Instagram that they were deactivating or removing our page. I literally just couldn't find it one day. A good friend of mine who runs marketing at another startup here in LA kind of suggested to me that I figure out a way to turn this negative situation into a positive situation. And at the time, I had heard of many other cannabis brands getting their page shut down. Many of them just started page 2 and page 3 over the years and had to regain their followers. And for some reason, I couldn't accept that as an answer. And so through some PR that we generated, I ended up writing a letter to Instagram that was taking the stance as a thought leader in cannabis. We, on behalf of the cannabis people, don't really understand why you keep shutting down our pages. And I use this analogy, which I'll bring up again, because I think it's pretty interesting to compare it. Like models on Instagram, women in particular, they know that the nipple is what they can't show. So they show left boob, right boob, cleavage, butt cheeks. They figure out a way to straddle the line, but not cross that line. And so on behalf of us, the cannabis people, we weren't aware what is our cannabis nipple. What is that line that we can't cross? Tell us what it is. Is it pictures of weed? Is it the word vagina, like Dr. Karen just said? Is it hashtag 420? Tell us what that cannabis nipple is, and we'll then make sure to act appropriately. And so we, of course, didn't hear back from Instagram. They didn't respond to the letter, but all of a sudden, randomly, a couple days later, our page was fully reinstated, all the followers fully back intact. Never heard a peep from Instagram. We ended up getting some decent PR out of it from some good, I think it was Adweek and Bloomberg that covered the story. And at the time, there was this woman in I think, Seattle that was trying to take a stance, and I still think that there is some confusion there because, for example, we recently launched our Amazon e-store. So we now as well sell e-commerce and accessories and branded swag items. And we're skeptical about sponsoring those posts and promoting those posts on Instagram because at the end of the day, Binske is a plant-touching business in some states in particular, with the operators that we've partnered with, like I mentioned earlier. And we don't want to flag our page anymore and get into any trouble. So taking something like the hat I'm wearing or the shirt I'm wearing and sponsoring it on an Instagram post is something that we're still not sure if we can or can't do as a, again, cannabis brand that we are. So that was my experience with Instagram. I ended up having retailers in Colorado reach out to me saying, hey, I heard you guys got your page back. How'd you get your page back? My page has been shut down. And unfortunately, we didn't have any information that we were able to share. It was just a random. Yeah, go ahead.
Just so people can see this at home, what was the publication? You said it was a Bloomberg article, or who picked up that story of you requesting the Instagram people tell you what is the cannabis nipple?
I think it was Adweek for sure, and I think Bloomberg as well. They both covered the story about trying to identify this cannabis nipple. And here's something else, Zach. Like, think about websites. You know, cannabis websites have the landing page of 21 plus. Are you 21 plus? Same with alcohol. Bring us the landing page on Instagram. You know, let us have a "Are you 21 plus" landing page. We can theoretically, excuse my word choice, weed out the non-21-year-olds, and then we can start to promote our own stuff on there, knowing that we're talking to an audience that's actually 21 plus. But the reason that I believe Instagram is shutting this down and not allowing it is the fear that we're showing this and, you know, offering products to minors. And we're all for removing all minors that are following the page and focusing on those that are, you know, of age to consume our products.
And while Kate's answering Alex, if you can add on the chat on the right side, that article, I think some people would love to read it, and you can just highlight to everybody viewing. But Kate, what are some of the challenges that you've been faced with?
Yeah, so I mean, we had a similar experience where there was probably like 3 weeks where we got our Instagram shut off, turned on, like at least 3 or 4 times. Similar situation, no clear direction as to why we were getting shut off. We luckily had a relationship with someone at Facebook that was high up who was helping us turn it back on. And you know, this person himself kind of was even saying, like, we don't have clear direction internally at Facebook on like the do's and the don'ts. Also, I hate to say it, but like, we're operating in a federally illegal industry, especially on the THC side. On the hemp-derived cannabis, on the hemp-derived CBD or other cannabinoid side, that's different. But at the end of the day, for us, at the beginning of Miss Grass, we were trying all of the tricks of the trade, like what's the workarounds to get paid media through, you know, what word can we not use? Let's create all these like clean landing pages that are like 2 clicks removed from this. And it's, unless you have someone and you want to devote a ton of resources to that and constantly be pivoting every other week because things change, it didn't feel like it was fruitful for us. So right now, we mainly rely on all organic marketing channels, with partnerships, I would say, being the biggest success of community growth, revenue driver, brand awareness. So we really lean in on leveraging other brands, reach, engagement, even like we'll work with like a paper magazine and they'll put paid media behind something in partnership with us, but we won't. So that's so far the thing that we've had the most success in.
In today's world, when you hear about a company, chances are the first place you look is on Instagram. And to cripple the momentum of the brand and the story that we're all telling by shutting us off and, you know, turning us back on, I've been through it myself with Greenbox. I share your frustration. These are some of the challenges that we're faced with being first movers in a brand new industry. So let's just keep pioneering, setting the bar, creating MSBs, you know, creating new ways to click through. I know exactly what you were talking about, Kate, in terms of the different landing pages. Glissant, we're going to figure this out in the sense that we need to be able to advertise an image that is associated with the bedroom and making sex comfortable. So we will find a way together to keep pushing this industry. Yeah, free the nipple of cannabis. Right. And,
right.
My final question before we dive into some product reviews and potentially a couple samples is to everybody. And starting with Glissant, you know, where do you see your company in the next 5 years, and where do you see the industries that we're in, or the industry specific that we're in? What is next for each of your companies, starting with Glissant?
I mean, I find it hard to believe that social media is not going to allow these types of advertisements. I mean, there's too much demand on society for all these things. So yeah, we'll have whatever limits they set, whether it's, right, are you 21 and over, just don't show a nipple. I do think that it will grow and reach more people. In my ideal world, in 5 years, our portfolio has a whole line of products specifically for women's sexual wellness that has, you know, a CBD option and a non-CBD option, because I think regardless of how much, you know, education and how many benefits there are of using CBD, there's always going to be people that aren't comfortable using it. And, my goal and our company's goal is really to help women's sexual wellness, which wellness in general, I think, can be helped with CBD. For some people, it's not, and they just need help, with their sexual health. So in 5 years, I would love to have, a much broader product line. Assuming there's no pandemic, it'd be nice to go to the store and actually see these things in person rather than just ordering them only online. We don't really have the same equivalent of like a dispensary for, sexual products except for pornography stores. That's not exactly what I wanted to do, but.
Got it. And what about you, Miss Grass, Kate Miller? What do you got for the future of your company?
So really leaning in on product for us. We just launched Miss Grass Minis, so we'll be looking to scale that strategically in California, and then starting to have conversations with other state operators. We're coming out with a hemp SKU product line, 3 different SKUs on the hemp side in November. So that will allow us to sell direct to consumer, sell on our site. Will be a lot easier than the THC side, although personally I'm more excited about the THC side. So that's really for us in the future. And then continuing to really just try to stay ahead and link arms with the right partners, the right people on the science side. I think that for an industry as a whole, the next 5 years, we will know so much more about this plant, especially if like something like the MORE Act passes or cannabis becomes decriminalized or even just rescheduled from it being a Schedule I substance in our country, which essentially means that it's the same. The government says that there's 0 medical benefits for cannabis as a whole, which what's problematic from the brand side and from the science side and for consumers ultimately means that there's no governmental funded studies that go to funding a study that would show the benefit of cannabis. The only government studies that can be around cannabis right now, given its Schedule I substance, can only prove that cannabis is harmful to us all. So I think that things will change on the from the classification side, which ultimately will mean that there will be way more studies. There's a ton of clinical studies going on right now, even on cannabis. So I think that gone are the days that like CBD and other cannabinoids are in every single product, from like leggings to toothpaste to like mascara, and consumers will be way smarter, and brands will also, and founders will be smarter about how and what are the right applications to integrate this plant into.
Beautiful. And real quick, Alex, what's the future of Binske?
Yeah, I mean, just talking about some of the stuff that Kate was just saying, it made me think, this whole notion where customers go into the store and they're price per milligram shoppers. I don't know how much time everyone on this panel has spent inside dispensaries, but these people, the consumers, they go into dispensaries and they're buying their flower based on the potency of the flower. The higher testing flower is what they're searching for. And, the equivalent to that, to alcohol, of what you're seeing inside some of these dispensaries would be the equivalent of Everclear liquor selling for more money than Blue Label, right? Everclear has a higher alcohol percentage, but Blue Label, for example, is a much better product. And there's a reason that Blue Label sells for a lot more money than Everclear. And so right now, that same exact piece of education is lacking in the cannabis industry. If you watch inside of a dispensary, these people come in and say, what is your highest testing flower? What can I get for $20? And so to Kate's point, I think the education and the awareness of the plant over the next few years is going to be just continuing to grow by the minute, honestly. In terms of Binske's next few years, we are launching, as I said earlier, in a couple new territories. Most notably is Canada coming up. We're relaunching our products in California right now. We have, nice, some new chocolate packaging being displayed by you, Zack. I love it. We're also launching a new brand called Alchemist, and Alchemist is going to be our fully nutraceutical cosmetic brand. And as some of the other panelists said earlier, I'm really excited to not have to deal with the THC regulations that we have to deal with that brand. But honestly, we're just going to continue doing what we're doing. We have such a vast product portfolio. We make products in the edible sector, like the gummies that Zach's pulling out of the tin right now.
By the way.
So these are pectin-based gummies that are fully vegan. Zach's going in on a quick 5 millis. I love it. We also offer chocolates and edible and granola and olive oil and honey and vape pens and pre-rolls and jarred eighths and concentrate by the gram and disposable vapes. We have this entire product portfolio. And so our goal is going to be continuing to maintain the market share that we have in the territories that we do have, and then continuing to see that same kind of market share in these new territories while trying to grow them at the same time. So going to keep the head down and keep trucking along here and keep doing what we're doing.
Very good. Very good. Well, that was delicious, by the way. I just tried the limon, and I want to make sure that we highlight everybody's products before we transition into some of the fan questions that we've received. So unboxing this beautiful Glissant product, we have the FDA cleared. Sorry, my lighting isn't incredible right now. But
Zach, I love you, and it's great that you tried the gummies, but I don't really want to watch you try
okay. Yeah, I don't. It'd be by myself to test out.
I understand. Yeah, it's fine.
But please go to each of these websites. We'll include them on the side. I do want to ask Ms. Grass which product I should test first in terms of continuing my day, still executing at a high level. Which one do you recommend?
Fast Times, so the pink one. So we have 3 different SKUs: Fast Times, Quiet Times, and All Times. The All Times is the black box, which is a 1-to-1 CBD to THC ratio. So that one will be like your microdose of a high. I believe that your tolerance is pretty high, Zach, so which is why I'm recommending the Fast Times, which all of our products are not like super, super high, but it's the perfect blend. What we did is we really looked at different flower strains and their terpene and cannabinoid profiles to blend different strains together to elicit a specific feel. So that one is like your creativity flow.
Really great job on the packaging. Really great job on the packaging.
Thanks.
And the matches that come with it. I always prefer, and I think I'm speaking for Alex too, to not use a lighter when I'm indulging. But really excited to try Miss Grass for the first time.
Yay! Live.
On this, I think we already, before I did this, we already won the best panel of e-commerce week because we're faced.
No question.
Everybody here is faced with challenges that don't exist with selling a hat company, a t-shirt company, traditional e-commerce. We have to find new ways. So together we're pushing this culture, this industry forward, and we need to make this okay. We need to make smoking
100%.
acceptable. So thank you all for the amazing products, but we're going to transition into some of the questions that we've received from our audience. Any advice? This one is so frustrating. Any advice for merchant services, credit card processing for CBD startups? Kate, I see you nodding your head. Tell us about all the different merchant processors that you've worked with.
I nod my head because I get this question asked maybe like twice a day to me, and I'm an open book. I'm happy to help. Luckily now there's a lot more that process CBD than when we first started. Square processes. They are taking, I don't know who's asking the question or where they're at in the life cycle of their journey, if they already have a brand. I think with Square, if I'm not mistaken, they require you to have like some sales or a threshold of sales before they'll process you. But Square would be probably the most like traditional one. But reach out to me, whoever is, I'm not even seeing where we're pulling these questions from, but reach out to me at Kate Miller at Miss. Okay. Kate Miller at missgrass.com, and I can send you a couple more depending on where you're at in your company life cycle.
Very good. And then before I ask the next question, Dr. Karen Eibler, how can people get in touch with you and Renee in case they have questions around Glissant and just want some additional questions answered about your products?
So you can go to our generic info at glissantlove.com, but whether it's good or bad, I'm like Kate too, a little bit of open book. So my direct email is Dr. Eilber, just DREILBER at glissantlove.com.
Very good. And what about you, Mr. Pasternak?
info@binske.com is the generic, and my personal is just alex@binske.com, and open book. Happy to reach out or happy to answer any questions.
So the next question, and I'm going through them, I'm kind of picking for us here, guys. So imagine, this is a really good one. Imagine a world where legal restrictions didn't exist. How would you take your brand worldwide? Who wants to start? Raise your hand if you're wanting to. There you go. Alex, what do you got for us?
So, I mean, the first thing to realize is that if you were starting a new company today, you would have centralized production. You would have production taking place in one specific location, and then you would distribute all over. So that is the biggest challenge that we face as a multi-state THC brand that I want everyone listening to understand. We don't have the luxury of having centralized production. That means in order to be a multi-state brand, you must grow cannabis in all of these different said states. You must produce the same products in all of these said states. And so right now our QA, QC of quality control and quality assurance is really like, it's everything for us at this point. We're trying to recreate the same exact products that we created in Colorado years ago while still continuing to create them in all these other territories that we're talking about. So in an ideal world, once federal legalization occurs, once you can cross state lines, cross international lines, having GMP certified operating companies that are producing at a much larger scale and distributing all over and working with global distributors is something that I think at Binske, we all just can't wait for that opportunity one day.
Great answer. Is regulation fully necessary, or is it just red tape? And what actually, let's pass this one over to Dr. Karen Eibler. What are your thoughts on, is the regulation around cannabis and CBD, is it really necessary, or is it just red tape from us reaching our customer that we can help with these modern wellness products?
I mean, I think everything has to have some type of regulation. Otherwise, there's no standards, but I do think, what is the difference between cannabis and alcohol? I mean, you could argue that alcohol is probably more dangerous than cannabis in many ways. So I do think regulation is necessary. I just think it should be more uniform. It's kind of like what Alex was saying earlier. Why are you shutting down Instagram sites? Why not just have like, are you 21 and over? So unfortunately, if there's no regulation, it's just the Wild West, and that's not going to work either. But I do think that when there is regulation, it should be uniform and appropriate.
Very, very well said. And then, did you want to add something else?
Yeah, and just in terms of that, if you think about it, if you're having a party, if you're having a barbecue on a Saturday or a Sunday, and you go to the liquor store and you buy a couple handles of vodka and a couple kegs for a party, no one's stopping you. No one's asking you, hey, why are you buying all this liquor? Why can you only buy 8 edibles in a state like Colorado? Why can you only buy 1 ounce of flour? But if you want to buy 2 or 3 ounces of flour, you can't. But I can go buy 12 kegs at the liquor store. And to that point, there's never been one case of pot overdose, right? There is no such thing as ODing from pot. Alcohol has been proven to be what we know is an absolute poison to the body. And I couldn't agree more that we need some regulation, but right now it's not fair for what the alcohol standards are. Alcohol's penetrated everything that we do. You go through airport security, the only drug available is alcohol. You get on the plane, the only drug available is alcohol. You get into your hotel at the mini bar, the only drug available is alcohol. Alcohol has penetrated our lives, and look, it seems like it's this go-to drug, but why? Who says who? And I think we're on that mission to change that.
That's why we need more green boxes at the airports and at hotels, right?
Thank you. I love that.
And regulation, I mean, in addition to being an operator in this space, and if this was federally legal and regulations changed, and, you know, to Zach's point, like we could ship this across state boundaries and all of that. Regulation is also critical for a number of different reasons. One, criminal justice reform. There's over 50,000 people right now behind bars in prison for the same plant that you just smoked on a conference call, on a panel. So that is essential for regulations to change. Two, from consumers, so that with regulation change, people like organizations like the FDA can kind of get around this plant and set proper guidelines, and so that consumers are safer and they're not just like walking into Bodega in New York and buying a CBD product that there's probably no CBD in it. And then of course, three, from just like being able to operate a lot easier and scale a lot easier from a business perspective.
Completely agree. And for me, just to kind of close us out, because we're getting kicked off in 1 minute, nobody's ever, to highlight what Alex said, to what, you know, everybody's talked about, cannabis has been strongly misconceived over the years, and we need to continue to push the culture, the acceptance of the plant. I myself have lost several friends to the opioid crisis, and I wish that they had access to cannabis because they'd still be with us. So keep doing what you're doing. Everybody here is helping move this industry forward. Thank you, Miss Grass. Thank you, Glissant. I got my hands full over here. Thank you, Vince, for all of your amazing answers. If you'd like to reach out to any of us, I'm sure everybody's willing to share some information, maybe not all the trade secrets, but please feel free to reach out to us anytime. Happy to talk about Greenbox. And if you're interested in you know, acquiring customers, I think Hawke Media is a great place to look in terms of a digital marketing outsourced marketing firm. Very approachable team there, and, you know, great services to offer you growth within your company. But I'd like to thank Kate, Alex, and Dr. Eibler for joining this amazing panel. We did win. Nobody's mentioned it to me, but our trophy will be in the mail for the best panel of e-commerce week. So thank you guys so much.
Thanks, Zach.
Yeah, thanks, Zach.
Thanks, Zach.
Guys, that was amazing. That conversation went in so many different directions. I definitely believe we need a new hashtag now. Free the weed. Free the weed, guys. It's trending.
That was free the nipple.
Well, no, we're taking the nipple back. We're taking the nipple back, okay?
Oh, right.
It's free the weed. We're stealing it from
Free the can of nipple.
Yeah, free the can of nipple. We're working on it. We'll figure it out. We're going to work on the branding. So thank you again.